So this week, Mazda was kind enough to send me one of the most popular vehicles within their lineup, the 2025 Mazda CX-5 Turbo Premium. Now, if you've been subscribed or follow along here on the channel, you'll know one of my very first press vehicles was actually the 2023 CX-50 Meridian Edition, which just so happened to be all new for 2023. Now, I've been curious about how the CX-5 stacks up against the CX-50 because these two vehicles compete in the exact same segment of SUV in the compact class, although the CX-50 is newer, slightly larger, and for 2026, Mazda is giving the CX-5 that exact same treatment, lengthening the wheelbase, making it slightly wider, just slightly larger overall, and giving it its new next generation technology on the inside, which should appeal to a number of buyers. But with that being said, I'm still curious to see whether or not the current generation CX-5, due to its sales, is still competitive within the compact segment and something that I would recommend to you guys watching. So over the last 6 days, I've been driving this CX-5, been really enjoying it. But just like the CX-50 and some of their other models, there are some inherent dislikes that I have with the product, the design, and just the overall packaging itself. So without further ado, let's not waste time. Get into everything I both liked and disliked with the 2025 CX-5. So as usual, starting my list of likes, the first one is going to be specifically what's found underneath the hood of the turbo trim levels of the CX-5, and that is the company's 2.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder Skyactiv G engine paired to the 6-speed automatic transmission and standard all-wheel drive. Now this setup puts out 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque, which is going to be one of the more torquey or powerful options within the compact SUV segment, and is one of the reasons that I not only enjoyed the CX-50 but also enjoyed the CX-5, as well as a couple other Mazda products that I've tested with this specific powertrain. And the 6-speed automatic isn't the most quick to shift or responsive transmission out there, but it's actually been very nice in this particular CX-5 over the last week and refreshing to drive. Just a turbocharged 4-cylinder with a regular 6-speed automatic, no hybrid electric system, no CVT type transmission. This is truly one of the more traditional powertrains at this moment in the segment. And really the only downfall of the 2.5-liter turbo is going to be the fuel economy efficiency and the fuel range that you get with the fairly small fuel tank size and that relatively poor fuel economy versus that of some of the naturally aspirated 4-cylinders, including Mazda's own CX-5 and some of the other competition out there, especially when you start to compare it to the hybrid vehicles, which unfortunately Mazda's not offering in this current generation CX-5, but they said is coming for the 2027 model year in the next generation. Now sticking around here at the front of the vehicle, my second like is going to be the steering responsive adaptive LED projector headlights. This is a feature that whenever I get a vehicle to test with it enabled, I enjoy using it, and I really think it helps visibility down the road. And I think buyers of this vehicle really do benefit from that technology because not a lot of mainstream manufacturers are putting adaptive steering responsive headlights on their vehicles. Now, unfortunately, Mazda did skip out on the CX-5 and using the fade on and off turn signals, which I think is an inherent benefit of some of their design and visibility, enabling the fade on and off. It kind of catches your eyes a little bit differently than a just straight on and off. So unfortunately, you don't have the fade on and off turn signals of the CX-5, but you do have the adaptive LED projector headlights, which throw a lot of light down the road and definitely enhance the nighttime visibility. Now my third like is going to be the walk-away automatic lock feature that is found with the proximity entry system of the CX-5. Now as you can see, the vehicle did just power fold in the mirrors and locked itself as I walked away with the proximity key fob on my person, or specifically in my hand. Now, walk-away automatic lock systems are not common against mainstream manufacturers in this segment. A little bit more popular than that maybe of the adaptive headlights, but still something that not every manufacturer has adopted. And actually, I've enjoyed using this system thoroughly over the last 6 days. I don't have it on my personal vehicle. I don't have it, again, on a lot of the vehicles I do test from the different manufacturers I get. But, just to have this system, you can basically turn it on and off as you see fit. If you prefer using the button on the door handle or on the key fob, you can do so, but it's just another safety measure that if you by chance forget to lock your vehicle and have it turned on, it will just automatically lock it for you once you get about 5 to 7 feet away from the vehicle. It beeps, give you that tone, and obviously folds in the mirrors if you have that feature on your specific trim level. Now my fourth like is going to be how quick Android Auto and Apple CarPlay connects wirelessly to this infotainment system. Now, as you can see, I just started up the vehicle, and literally maybe 10 to 12 seconds later, we have Android Auto connected and playing on the system. It is literally just that quick to connect and much quicker than a lot of other manufacturers out there. So I really do appreciate Mazda for this infotainment and technology, because it's been very reliable, just like basically every other product I've tested from them, and it works well. It's just a matter of if you like the multimedia controller that is located in the center console, because you can use it as a touchscreen here for Android Auto, but once you go back to their main UI themselves, it no longer is a touchscreen. So one of those trade-offs there, but overall, wireless Android Auto Apple CarPlay connects quickly and is very reliable. So I think my fifth and final like with CX-5 is going to be the interior for its build quality, its material usage, and its design language. So starting out here on the door panel, you're going to find a good amount of soft touch, either synthetic leather or genuine leather materials that feel very premium, upscale for this segment of compact SUV. Accent stitching, you know, silver trim here and there. The seats are going to be the black leather, but you can get different interiors depending on the exterior and trim level. They feel very nice, a little bit on the firmer side, but still very premium. And then taking a look at the dashboard, you can see the premium materials do continue on the top, the bottom, the steering wheel. All of it is very well put together. And it doesn't just stop there. The headliner and the pillars are wrapped in a very nice cloth material that is soft to the touch. The build quality on this vehicle has been phenomenal. Zero squeaks or rattles over the last week. And I think this is, again, what sets Mazda apart from that of its competition, is generally the interiors feel more upscale, more premium. They offer more soft touch materials than that of the competition, even at a very similar price point. And the build quality is generally very robust as well. So the CX-5, despite being a little bit older in its current generation, still maintains all of those characteristics and is still very competitive in the compact SUV segment, as long as you're okay with the physical size, the physical footprint, and some of the other inherent design language, including that multimedia controller for the infotainment system, because that's something they've just used in all their vehicles over the last couple of generations. But it appears that might be changing here moving forward, specifically starting with this CX-5. And before we move on to the dislikes, another really big like I have is the platinum quartz exterior color on this particular vehicle. It's a nice mix between silver and beige, has a great amount of metallic flake, and contrasts very nicely against this gloss black trim on this Turbo Premium model. But anyways, that's going to do it for my list of likes with the CX-5. Now let's get into things that I didn't love so much about it over the last week. So starting out with my first dislike, that is going to be the seating position here in the front seats, and I want to be fully transparent that this is a very subjective one. A lot of people out there probably like it and even prefer it. However, for me personally, it is not my favorite. Now, the reason I dislike the seating position here in the CX-5 is I've had spinal fusion. My torso is fairly tall in relation to my 5'9" overall height, and the seat in the CX-5 just simply does not go low enough inside the vehicle for my preference. It feels that you're sitting on top of the vehicle rather than within. Like the CX-50, the seat is much better. The overall seating position is my preference. But in the CX-5, it just feels like you're on top of the vehicle, kind of in a booster seat position, which gives you a commanding viewpoint of the road no matter where you have the seat set. And you generally have a little bit more of a visibility out of the side, given the high seating position versus the belt line of the vehicle. So again, a lot of people out there probably do like the seating position, but for me personally, I like a more relaxed sedan-like position, which is a little bit lower in the vehicle, a little bit more relaxed, where this one just feels a little bit more upright and a little bit more on top of the vehicle, which is just not something that I would not buy the vehicle for, but it does give you a different feel behind the wheel, if that makes sense. Now, my second dislike is going to be found in the rear seats of the CX-5, and it's going to be specifically with the location of the USB-A charging ports and the rear heated seat buttons. So here I am behind my driving position. You can see I have plenty of room. There's plenty of footroom, everything like that. We even have rear AC vents, but for some reason, Mazda chose to incorporate the USB charging ports and the heated seat buttons here in the center armrest, which, at the end of the day, if you don't ever have a middle occupant or more than like 2 or 3 people driving this vehicle, then it's really not going to be a big deal, because you can just leave the armrest down, have easy access to the rear heated seats in the wintertime and the USB-A charge ports. But my dislikes are going to be specifically in case you can't actually access those buttons or can't fold down the armrest. Those are kind of locked away and features you cannot readily access. And the fact that there's still USB-A charging ports, where the front of the vehicle has switched over to USB-C. So my third dislike has to do with the Mazda driver assist and safety suite that is found in one of their higher trim levels of vehicles. So with the Turbo Premium that I'm sitting in, you get the most advanced driver assist that's available currently on this CX-5, which is the traffic jam assist, which is at low speed. It provides lane centering as well as the additional adaptive cruise and some of the other systems that do work within this vehicle. The reason I say it's a dislike is, well, it doesn't provide lane centering at interstate or higher speeds on 2-lane roadways. And even though the adaptive cruise control works reasonably well, the fact that this vehicle does not have any sort of active lane centering, here you can see the button for the lane keeping and lane centering here on the right side, is a little bit of a disappointment because other manufacturers not only provide their one of their most advanced systems as standard across most of their models, but overall this is just behind the competition in terms of its performance and the features that it allows drivers behind the wheel. So my fourth dislike is going to have to do with that number right there, 24.5 mpg, and that's what I've been averaging over the last 6 days with this vehicle. Now this was something I mentioned earlier on when I was talking about the powertrain, the overall performance of this vehicle, but the 2.5 liter turbo is not going to be one of the most fuel efficient vehicles in this segment. Although it is one of the more powerful options, it is just a little bit down on fuel economy versus that of the naturally aspirated engine options and of course the hybrids, which start to creep up on the overall performance and output that this engine has by itself. So in terms of fuel economy, it's rated at like 22 city, 27 out on the highway, 24 combined. You can see I'm reading that 24 combined, which is nice to see at least. But in terms of the overall fuel range, you have roughly a 15-gallon fuel tank. So depending on the fuel economy that you're getting around town or out on the interstate or a combination of things, it might actually be difficult to exceed 350 to 400 miles on a tank before you need to fill up. Luckily, you can put regular 87 octane in this vehicle. But, you know, even though it's not the lowest range vehicle out there, you can get over 400 miles cruising out in the interstate. It's just not quite as efficient and not quite as range prone as the hybrid options that get well over 30 mpg on the interstate, if not pushing, you know, 35, 36. This vehicle is significantly down on that, and I think it is a drawback despite the performance and the driving dynamics. Now my fifth dislike is going to have to do with the wireless charging pad here in the center console and simply its performance that I've experienced over the last couple days. I have a Pixel 9 Pro. It fits very nicely in here, especially when you have the vehicle in the drive. You throw your phone down there. It does start to charge relatively quickly. I can't see. I think it did just activate right there. It's a very nice wide charging pad, so you shouldn't have any problem putting most new devices in there. However, my phone has overheated to the point where it is very hot to the touch when I pick it up after just 30 to 45 minutes of charging. And I'm not actually sure how much charge and battery I've actually put into the cell phone over that same period of time. So I think it's more of a maintenance wireless charger, especially when you're using wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, which does use a little bit more battery than just using Bluetooth or things like that. So even though it has a wireless charger, I'm not sure it's the best performing out there, and it does overheat your phone relatively quickly while probably not giving you all that much battery back into the device. And I think my last and final dislike is one that I just feel obligated to put on this list, even though I personally don't dislike it, but I know a lot of people who I've talked to don't like the fact that it has this setup, is going to be the multimedia infotainment controller located in the center console and the lack of a touchscreen for all of Mazda's UI in conjunction with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So as I've noted in some of the other videos I've done on Mazdas, if you're using their UI right here, for one, it doesn't look the most easy to navigate, even though it does have a lot of nice settings and the menus are fairly simplistic, so I don't mind it. However, when you have their own UI up, this screen is not a touchscreen. But the moment you turn on Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, so we'll just go into audio right here, we'll go ahead and connect to my Android Auto, pull that up here. It does turn into a touchscreen, which allows you to use the touchscreen on the device to, navigate all of the different menus that Android Auto and Apple CarPlay has for you right there. So you can see it is fully touchscreen with that system enabled, but I know a lot of people out there don't like the old school kind of infotainment controller located down here, but I actually think it's a huge benefit and very easy to use, especially when you're just cruising down the road with your left hand on the steering wheel. You can have your right hand on this multimedia controller. The volume's located down here. You have all of these quick access buttons, which actually integrate very, very well with Android Auto. But at the end of the day, I think this is something that most people don't prefer anymore, and I think Mazda is listening to that by giving a full-on touchscreen for their next generation UI. From what I've seen in the few pictures that Mazda has released, I hope they don't go too far in the way of alienating physical controls and buttons on the interior for this new UI and this infotainment interface, just to go more modern, because that's one of the huge highlights of their current generation vehicles. It's all the physical controls on the inside are very, very easy to use. So with all that being said, that is going to do it here for my full list of likes and dislikes on the 2025 Mazda CX-5 Turbo Premium. If you guys enjoyed this video and or found it helpful, make sure to hit that like button below, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know if you agree, disagree, or want to add any likes or dislikes that you may have with your CX-5 versus that of some other vehicles you might have experienced and or driven, because it will only help people shopping for this vehicle ultimately decide if this is the right fit for them. So leave those down in the comment section below. I want to give a huge thanks to Mazda for sending this vehicle out for me to test, interview, and experience. I really did enjoy this vehicle overall. I really enjoy basically every Mazda I've gotten behind the wheel of. Offers a little bit more of a firmer ride, better handling. The powertrain is very nice, and all the physical controls combined with the premium interior is something that stands out from that of the competition at really the same price point as that of the competition. Right around $40,000 this vehicle is equipped, and I still think it's a great option if you want this particular generation before the new generation comes out and are okay again with the physical size and the feature set that it has enabled. I think the biggest drawbacks are going to be the driver assist, the fuel economy, and things like that. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Check out my dedicated driving review as well as walk around review video on this exact vehicle, some of the other content I have on the CX-50 and other Mazda products. And with all being said, I appreciate your continued support and hope to see you guys in the next one.